Hey guys, StarCraft here, and I am honored to have with me a man who's created a bunch of things in my childhood, Mr. Doug TenNapel. Doug, thank you so much for coming.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me on, buddy. Good to see you, Robert.
Yep,
Love your
you.
work.
Thank you so
Love
much.
your reviews. They always crack me up. But I've seen your
Yep.
past. It warmed my heart. I'm just
hmm
saying. I like it.
Yeah.
I like the cutty. I like the way you do what you do.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And you've done so much stuff in the industry, both video games, cartoons, and comics. You've done, well, obviously, what you're best known for, Earthworm Jim,
That's right.
but you've also done Neverhood, Armikrog, Bigfoot Bill, obviously, Catscratch, and a whole bunch of other comics and graphic novels, both independently made and crowdfunded. So, yeah, let's start at the beginning with
Yeah, I've done
yes,
everything. That's the
yes, you
bottom
have.
line. If there's
Yes, you
a
have.
video games, did it.
Mm-hmm.
TV, did it.
Yep.
Movie deals, did it.
Yep.
Video
Mm-hmm.
games, all did it.
Yep.
So
So yeah.
every studio has picked up one of my projects, bought it. So I've worked
Mm-hmm.
for every studio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an animator. I'm a sculptor. I'm a writer. I'm a
Yep.
watercolorist. I do oil paints. I do digital. I do traditional. I'm trying to see if I
Mm-hmm.
covered everything.
You're
Those were the big
multi-talented.
ones.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
It's not the
now,
talent. It's just I'll do anything no matter how bad I am at it. I don't care. I'll do it.
hey,
I have no
that's a great
fear.
spirit.
I'm the
Yep, I know. Hey, trust me, that is a great type of personality to have in life. So yeah. So yeah, according to the making of Earthworm Jim book, you were just tapped in when they needed an animator at Shiny, and they were trying to get the guy who did Day of the Tentacle apparently, but couldn't get a hold of him, so they asked you, and you basically came up with Earthworm Jim, Psychro, and Professor Monkey for a head, correct?
That's right. If that guy, his name is Larry Ahern, great guy. But if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on vacation, if he took that job, Earthworm Jim probably wouldn't have existed.
Yeah, we'd have Snot.
Just snot.
Yep. But yeah, now how you then came up with all of the characters, correct?
I did all the major characters I did. So
Yeah.
it took a little. So just the first ones that I did in that first 45-minute creating session was Earthworm Jim,
Yep.
Psychro. I'd already
And
created Evil the year before. Professor
Monkey
Monkey for a head.
Yep.
So the only one that I didn't create was Snot, which is that because that was the game they were thinking about doing. That was, I believe, it was Mike Dietz that came up with Snot.
Yeah, I believe that's what the book said. And
Yeah,
yeah, that book was so informative.
I know, right? That making of book, which if you guys don't have it,
Yep.
it's on the Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
You can get a tier that has that making of book. I go through the entire history of how the team got together, and it is full of the most exclusive stuff, even stuff that I didn't know because I went back and interviewed all of the original team members and had them fill in all the gaps of that story. So this is the first time that the entire story was finally told of how we came together and how we did that game.
Right. Now, I know I'm jumping ahead with this, but since it connects into it, the Indiegogo crowdfunded comics you've been doing are pretty much following broad strokes the first game, correct?
Yeah.
Now,
Not in order though. It's
right.
I just know there's more fans of the first game than the second game. So I'm always trying to pay tribute to that first game primarily, and then secondarily the second game.
Right, because I noticed there was obviously you just skip right on ahead, with Psychro and Evil. You skip the junkyard for obvious reasons, and I don't think you could have shoehorned that in. But will we ever see Fluffy?
Fifi,
Fifi.
will. I hope we can get to some of that. I don't know exactly. Like I know the plot. I don't know what characters will get dropped in, and then they'll start influencing that plot. So.
All right.
The problem with that New Junk City level is it looks like it takes place on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like there has to be a reason for the junkyard guy who's just a normal fat guy, Chuck. and he has a weird machine. And then Fifi's this bizarre dog, and then Space Crows are coming down, and then there's the Trash Can Man.
Yeah, the Trash Can Man
is the main boss.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
you know, knowing those were the elements, if I ever were able to get Earthworm Jim back on Earth, he'd end up in a junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the aliens are bringing animated garbage to life.
Yeah.
You know, so it's possible. It's just, I'm going, well, I could do that, or I could do Bobbin #4 and the underwater planet and the sub sequence. I go, I think that's a little more present in people's minds, and while he's out in space. Right. So next one's probably Peter Puppy, the third one that I'll be working on after this one, after Bigfoot Bill 3, I'll be working on that one.
Right.
And I'm almost positive that one will have the whipping the Peter, you know, to jump him across the level is going to be.
Now, I've noticed in your preview for the second volume, you're now changing Peter to be more like his animated series look. Why do that?
Yeah. So it's more, I thought it's a little more cinematic to have him be a real dog. Because I thought if they were going to make that first book into a movie, I always pictured Peter as looking like a real dog that turned into a giant monster. So there's a lot of Warner Brothers influence on the video game, obviously. So when we showed Peter Puppy in the video game, you know, I just made him a Warner Brothers character, but he's a kind of a dog. So in this book, because I started him as a regular dog, because he needed to fit in on Earth as a dog because he's a spy.
Right.
He used to work in the first book. It documents that he used to work for the Queen. So he needed to look like one of our dogs. And so Earth dogs don't look like Warner Brothers dogs running around.
No, they don't.
Like Bugs Bunny standing up and talking, not in the Earthworm Jim world anyways, in that world. So, and then I wanted, just for the fans, I wanted to get him into that Peter Puppy shape. It's much easier to tell a story as the cartoon dog standing up on his hind legs than running around on all fours.
True.
So I had to provide that story background to get him there in this book.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. But now when you see Peter Puppy, it's like, well, why does he look that way when other animals in this, you know, the cow looks like a real cow. Why does Peter look like a cartoon dog? Well, now that when you read the book, it'll all make sense.
Well, it also helps he's an alien, so you can stretch it anyway.
Yeah.
And Psychro, he's been there since the beginning. And I just love how you even mentioned Jim Cummings' voice, where he talks very much like this.
Yeah.
It's really influenced how
you wrote he's like him. A crime lord. He's really kind of scummy, like a dirtbag kind of guy. He's got a pot belly and just real, like the lower end criminal. So I really pushed that on him, where he really is like, he has a big appetite for worms. He's into junk. He has like this junk ship. And he's a little more brutal of an enemy, because you don't want your big, like, mastermind villain to be the first villain. You don't want the smartest one to be the first one. You want to give him something, you know, Jabba before the Emperor. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, given how Slugbutt is bigger than Jabba.
Yeah.
Which, now, I got two little games questions I want to ask with the game, man. With #4, during that underwater level, I could always take them out with the super plasma. Was that always intentional, where they were pretty much invincible unless you used the plasma?
Yeah.
Or was it,
so that's just a gameplay, a game design decision, where you have two weapons, right? You have his main hand, little machine gun, and then you have the plasma blaster. So if you had, and the plasma blaster, we always called it a power down instead of a power up, because you can't use that spray mechanism with the D-pad. You know, the D-pad, while you're pushing down the button, you can spray like this, and you have a better chance of hitting something than if you try to land a diagonal with a D-pad and hit plasma, right?
Right.
It's really hard to hit a diagonal with plasma. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
So a lot of times you really need a weapon to work. And you shoot plasma, you hit that D-pad upper left hand, and it doesn't trigger both the up and the left, which in combination gives you that upper left, and it might just go straight diagonal and miss the bad guy. Whereas you'd be hitting them all the time with that machine gun.
Right.
So we bumped up the power of the plasma a bunch because it was so hard to use. And we tended to have the enemies that came in on a horizontal. They tended to be either right beside you or straight up to avoid those diagonals because it was just too hard on the gameplay. So those are things that you adjust. You reprogram the AI and you redesign the levels accordingly to make them more useful.
Right. Yeah, yep. And the other one was, I don't know if this was a glitch or something, but I always played the Genesis version. And whenever I got the slug for a butt, I would use the whip, instant win.
Yeah.
Was that
the
intentional?
whip
Was
has
that an
more
accident?
power. Again,
Yeah.
the whip is hard to nail on a diagonal also for the same reason.
Right.
So the whip we gave less power than the plasma, but more power than the machine gun.
Yeah, but was it meant to be a one-hit kill, though? Because it was just like a one-hit kill and she just went to blowing up.
Yeah, it probably meant that she was worked down to a point that she was on her last life. So if you can get a whip in there, you got it.
Actually, to be fair, it was the first hit. That's why I'm asking if it was a glitch. First hit, I got her in.
I'm sure it's not a glitch. I'm sure it was intentional.
Oh, okay.
It was probably in play testing. We probably had our guys where there's an advantage on that level because she's spraying out bees and doing all of her magic that makes a proximity to her very difficult to hit. That you can sit there from a distance and be shooting on her all the time. Right. And that's too easy because your gun replenishes. So if you can jump in within that area where she has a one-hit kill on you.
Oh, okay.
And so if you can land a whip, then we probably rewarded you with killing the boss.
Then I guess I was that good then.
You're that good. You figured it out. But not a glitch. Just they're balancing things where we would all play that last level over and over and go, look, we're all expert gamers. We made the game and we can't finish it. So they go, okay, we have to make it easier. So they start moving things around a little bit and tuning things and go, well, what about this? What if we make it so that if you hit her with the whip, it's a one-shot kill?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I know everyone else would just go for the blaster. They wouldn't think whip her because they think like, oh, what's that going to do?
By the way, we would even, because we're always playing media, we would even reverse engineer things like, well, we can give in the hints and tips magazine section, that can be a clue. It can say like hit the queen with one whip. And so we were putting in things that became factoids in a magazine because that was our marketing, was the games journalism back then.
Oh, that's awesome.
Back when games journalism worked.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding. Now, you did the voice for Jim in those early days. So you're the one who gave us stuff like Cheater and Ruby and Whoa, Nelly.
That's right. That was me. And ow. That was me.
I gotta say though, when it was Whoa, Nelly, I don't know if it was my TV. I always thought he said, "Whoa, get out of the way," because he's going.
Whoa, get out of the way. Exactly. Maybe in the Sega CD version, I might have done a crack because on the Sega CD we could hold so much more sound than on a cartridge.
Right.
So on the Sega Saturn version, I did a lot more voices on that because we could.
Right. Now, with the other characters, Major Mucus and
Major Mucus, yeah.
Yep, he returned in the second one, and then I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Professor Monkey for a head. Don't ever call him Professor Monkey Human for a head, or Professor for a head.
Doc Duodenum, the gut.
Right.
He was only in the Genesis version because the Genesis would give us a larger cartridge for free if we gave them one exclusive level over the SNES.
It had nothing to do with the censorship from Nintendo, because that's what I heard it was.
There might have been something like that, but no, at the time it was, they wanted it because we built that whole level in one day.
Whoa.
That's probably the worst level in the whole game. Was Doc Duodenum. Yeah. And then all the animation, all the backgrounds, Nick Broody blew that thing out in a day.
Yep. Then of course, if I mentioned Nick Broody, you have the Broody level in the Sega CD version.
That's right. So that's another exclusive on that game is Big Broody. Ed Schofield did the animation on the main boss guy, and then Nick did the little 3D wasps that come out.
Right.
And the rest of us were moving forward with Earthworm Jim 2, designing Earthworm Jim 2 while they were wrapping that up.
Which I love. I love the randomness of 2. 1 felt like there was a bit of linearity. 2, it was off the walls.
It was a mess. Yeah. Yep. Basically, everything everything that got cut from one, we put into. We got a lot of those ideas we pulled off the floor.
Right. We had the blind salamander. It was like, and where did that come from?
Well, here's a cool exclusive right here. This is the page I just did the other day.
Oh.
There's the blind cave salamander. And those are all the villi
nice.
from the guts on the outside that he's in. And then look what he's facing.
Oh, is that Psychro?
Maybe Psychro. He's being brought back as a memory by, there's Bob using his mental powers up there, the goldfish.
Oh, nice. That is so awesome.
This is a big, you can see, I'm referencing the game, having a bunch of fun. It's a psychological conquest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, why make Psychro the main villain in the second game? Was it just because he was one of the only ones left, or what?
He's just a favorite. He's a favorite of the fans, and he's probably the most visually interesting of all he and Evil the Cat, I think, are probably two of the more fun, interesting villains. So I don't have Evil the Cat coming back in the second book, but I'm pretty sure he'll be back in the third.
But you are having as a stretch goal the extra book, your original book you did, now reprinted. And
I've got here's a hint and tip exclusive for your show.
All right,
is I put another stretch goal on the campaign that has an evil involved with it.
Ooh, nice.
At 195. So if you guys go take a look at that, and even though this is Kickstarter, I know a lot of people are against Kickstarter, and I'm fine with that. If you don't come in this campaign, all of the goodies that come in this campaign will be added to the Indiegogo campaign automatically. So you're not going to miss out on anything. And if you're here on this Kickstarter campaign and you're going, hey, look at all the stuff they're adding over on the Indiegogo, all of those stretch goodies will be automatically included in this campaign.
Oh, awesome.
So
awesome.
2 campaigns goodies. I'm going to pack this thing with so much stuff. It's going to be great. And the book's already got, so the Indiegogo campaign won't have to earn all this because it's already paid for. It's already got embossing and debossing, and we're about to unlock the next color of foil. There should be another color of foil coming, and in the Indiegogo, I'll start adding, and it already has gold gilded edges. So on the Indiegogo, I'll start adding the UV gloss. Again, all of the features will be for both campaigns. So really, Kickstarter I'm trying to expand my audience into that hostile territory of Kickstarter. And I'm trying to get more Kickstarter backers involved in paying for this campaign. And the Indiegogo people, they'll be my regular crowd. Will come in on that one.
That's smart. That is very smart.
I'm trying. And the super fans are coming in for both, or if you want to help out the Kickstarter, by all means, help it out. But if you're Indiegogo only, no worries. We got you covered. It's going to be great. And this thing is going to be it will be the most loaded campaign of my life. I
bet. Well, until the next one.
Right. That's gonna be the hard thing if I have to keep beating myself by the third one, I'll have to include a free pony or something.
Or an actual power suit eventually.
Yeah. I'll come over and I'll tattoo a teardrop on your face.
Now, with the comic, where did the idea of coming up with that space princess, whoever she is, where did that come from? And that's what made Jim become giant as opposed to the suit doing it, which is what it originally was.
Sure. Originally, it was, there was no time or space really to put the Space Fairy in the original. So it wasn't even an option back then.
It was always there?
No, I just thought it was a little generic what I had originally come up with, which is the suit is flying through space and it hits a meteor and picks up some space dust in the neck ring and then goes to Earth and lands and mutates a worm. It's entirely by accident. I thought it was really bad sci-fi to just say it hits some space dust. It's kind of, it's kind of the feeling I get from Fantastic Four. It just doesn't explain enough that they go through that intergalactic event and one guy becomes stretchy rubber, one girl turns invisible, one guy is molded with rock. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
You just kind of go, oh, space dust, huh? So
True.
instead, I thought it would make it a funner fairy tale if I had an actual being involved. And so I created the space fairy for that.
Will she return?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, can't wait.
Oh, yeah. So that's part of a much larger overarching story that plays into, it's way bigger. There's a supernatural giant level going on above all this stuff that ties directly to Princess What's Her Name, what happened to her as a kid, why the queen is after the earth, all that stuff is tied to what's going on with the space fairy.
Which, speak of which, Princess What's Her Name, you overhauled her for the comics pretty much. She's no longer the sister of the queen. She's the adopted daughter.
That's right.
She's the real daughter and all that.
That's right.
And she feels a bit more, compared to how she was in the cartoon, a bit more chilled by comparison. She's still a hard ass, but not as much of how she was.
She's not as dykish.
Yeah.
I just wanted to have her, she's still tough as nails, but I wanted to kind of explain, so this is all in the second book, gives a lot more of the princess's background in this second book. So I don't want to give away any spoilers, but you learn a lot about the princess and kind of the why. And it really is, the B plot is all hers. So A plot's Jim, B plot is all the princess. You'll see she's got a great story, a great background. It is, I think, very emotional and very beautiful. So we'll find out more about her. And now she'll be directly involved with Earthworm Jim's story.
Nice.
So before, all these characters were kind of tacked together, and now they all deeply belong with each other. And by the end of the 5-book series, it'll give kind of reasoning and the why of why exactly Psychro, how did Professor Monkey for a Head get that way? And who is Major Mucus, right? I mean, why is there a snot character? And maybe he might have something to do with a Major Mucus. Right. So I'm just saying all of this stuff is going to start playing out into a giant space opera that's going to come together, in a giant head in the 5th book. And it's so now when you go back and play the game, there'll be all this meaning will be sitting there. And even if you never play the game, the books themselves will be hopefully an amazing, bizarre journey.
I cannot wait.
Nothing's been done like it in games or in comics before, where you go back in and tell the story, after the game and give the why for it. It'll end up increasing the joy that you have in the game, but also the story itself is a bizarre story because it's loosely following a game that's dictating all of these facts that maybe I wouldn't normally write unless that game first existed.
No, and I understand completely.
Yeah.
Now, one other question with Earthworm Jim 2 is why make it such an anticlimactic ending with Psychro, where it's call a taxi, squash?
It was it might have had to do with the whole team's fatigue at that point. I had left the company before the game was finished. I think we were so burnt after doing Earthworm Jim 1 because we finished that game in less than a year. Like we put together a team, a studio, created all the characters, and finished the game and released it within the first year. And we were so burnt, right? But there's no money to pay unless you sign up for another game. And so you pull the trigger on the next game and then the clock starts again and you have another year.
Right.
So we had to get right back to work on the next game with very little time off. And Nick Brody, who's probably one of the hardest working guys on the team, he had to do an extra Dr. Wadnam level and do the extra level in the Sega Saturn and wrap all that up, refresh a lot of the graphics, and then go into Earthworm Jim 2 without a break. So it was
no wonder he thinks it sucks.
Yeah, we were we were punch drunk making Earthworm Jim too. And that's why a lot of it, we were just going to go like, screw it. Let's do it. Like we were insane. Like,
well, the game was insane.
yeah. And not necessarily in a fun way, just in a very weird way, just like where everyone was going like, okay, let's try that. Yeah. And kind of, it was like, woohoo, watch this. I'm going to put that's why I was able to do the blind cave salamander level. Cause I started proposing the dumbest, weirdest stuff. And I'm a huge amphibian fan. I've raised amphibians most of my life. I have aquariums of amphibians, little sanctuaries and stuff like that. So I just said, this level is called the flying blind cave salamander level. They're all, where's Earthworm Jim? I go, oh, that's a costume. He's wearing a blind cave salamander costume.
And then you have a quiz show at the end with very nonsensical answers.
Yeah. And he goes into a quiz show at the end. So it's pretty dumb and really fun, really funny.
Yep. Now, funny you mentioned with the amphibians. Is that why you start the Catscratch? We'll jump into that. That intro with them at the beginning?
Yeah, the singing newts. Yeah.
Yep.
You'll see amphibians, newts mostly, but you'll see in almost all of my work has either a newt or a salamander in it. In all of my 20 graphic novels, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 of them don't have a newt or a salamander in them. Most of them have them in there somewhere, so it fits.
Actually, before we get on ahead to Catscratch, let's back up a bit back to the Earthworm Jim cartoon, and maybe you can clear something up. According to TV tropes, the guy who helped you develop the cartoon, you thought it was not a good idea from what it said. Was that true or what?
That's not true.
All right.
All I've said about that is, so it was Doug Langdale.
Yep.
Was our main writer, who's one of the funniest guys I've ever met, one of the best writers I've ever met. He was in my movie Mothman, which never got released. He's just a great guy and a great friend. We co-created a show called Project Geeker after Earthworm Jim for CBS. He was a co-creator on that. He wrote the movie, the Book of Life. For George Gutierrez. So he was the writer on that. But I just thought his writing is very crazy, funny, silly. And my stuff is maybe a little more Star Wars-y in my taste. But the bigger problem with that production was, I think the budget on each episode was something like $240,000 an episode. It was like considered dog food at the time. It was one of the cheapest animation productions on Saturday morning. So I'm an animator guy. I'm an animator snob. And the animation, through no fault of the production team at all, it was just dog food. We couldn't afford a lot of retakes, really, a lot of frame count in the animation. It was just kind of whatever they spit out the first time was what we had to go with. That's all. That was my bigger beef with. I just think the show suffered because there wasn't quite enough tender love and care put into it, especially on the animation side.
I gotcha. Well, I can give you some assurance. There's at least one animated cartoon out there that did exist that I think you can then look at and say, like, hey, ours is light years better than that. The Hammerman cartoon.
Oh, yeah, that one was bad. It had really good character designs, but yeah, I think they were shooting that thing on 8s. So it was like real choppy. I remember that one.
Yeah, I do too. I was one of the ones who's like, hey, you remember the Hammerman cartoon?
Yeah.
You're crazy. What are you, high? It's like,
well,
no,
if you look at the first season of the Proud Family, it has very limited animation, but the character designs and the drawings are amazing looking. So it's kind of okay. You don't need as much smooth movement if they're really good drawings that you're working with. So,
right now, with the casting, for example, Dan Castellaneta as Earthworm Jim, Frank Welker as Peter Puppy, and all that, Cassie Suzy as Princess.
It was Jeff Bennett as Peter Puppy.
Oh, Jeff Bennett. Sorry. I don't know why I said Frank Welker. And was there any did you approve the casting, or was it a yep?
Yep,
So,
they
yeah,
ran it all by me. I got to be on for all of it. And it was a group decision, largely we would lean on Doug Langdale. He was the main guy on it. And Kathy Castillo was the producer on it. But, and I love the cast. I mean, these were just legends. Kath Soucie as Princess What's-Her-Name. Jim Cummings is Psychro. Charlie Adler did Professor Monkey for a Head. Who was the SCTV gal that did the Queen?
Andrea Martin.
Andrea Martin was hilarious. And just I got to see them all off camera, and it was insane in that booth. They were crazy.
And again, it was back when Dan was still opening himself up to other roles before he decided to stick with Homer.
We're one of the few other voices we ever got Dan Castellan out of for, and he was amazing.
Yep, groovy. So, okay, now we can move on to Catscratch, which, from what I understand, was a lighter, softer version, going by TV tropes, of what your Gear comic, or is that what it was called? Yeah,
that's true. Gear.
Yep, and
which we just re-released last year through Image in color. It's the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary edition, I think, of it. And Image Comics is still putting it out in color by the Catherine, my current colorist on Earthworm Jim, co-colored that book. That was one of my first ones that I did with. It originally came out through Fireman Press, who did Scud. So that's my buddy Rob Schraub, Dan Harmon, and those guys were the first to put out Gear. And then Nickelodeon came in and wanted to do the TV show, and it became Catscratch. Yeah. Now tell us a bit more about it. I know it only lasted about a full season that was stretched out over 2 years. Yeah. How was the production on that? I don't know if it was one season or two, but it was 23 episodes, I think. Something like that. But how was the production on that? It was amazing. Yeah. My showrunner was Peter Hastings, who did Pinky and the Brain. So just one of the funniest, best guys. Mitch Watson was one of our writers who did Batman Beyond. Who else was in on that? Scott Kramer's one of our great writer. And then the storyboard guys were all boarders. I've seen them do movies, and they worked on the Hellboy short or DreamWorks TV productions of Puss in Boots and stuff. Just some of the greatest board artists ever. And then the voice work was also Rob Paulson, John DiMaggio, Kevin McDonald, Wayne Knight, Liliana Mooney, Billy Mooney's daughter, did The Human Kimberly. The music was by Terry Taylor, who is one of my favorite all-time musicians, who did the Neverhood soundtrack. Oh, we'll get to that. And he was just doing like a Carl Stalling thing, just like, it was amazing. Right. Absolutely amazing. I wish that show lasted longer. I really wish it did. What happened? It really is probably the best TV show I've ever worked on, was Catscratch. It was just a tough time at Nick. It was very ratings driven. We had some conflicts on the team, some problems. I don't want to get into it, but all right. Just some people had to get fired, I understand. Yep. You see this stuff happening still, but it wasn't over that stuff. It was over, other stuff. Well, just to also point out with Catscratch, there's a person online called Toon Scribbles who did a little comic. It was about a bunch of Nickelodeon stuff, but the Catscratch, the three cats actually feature in that because they were the most recent Nicktoons at the time. But I can link you to it later because I think you might find it interesting how they were handled. And they're actually some of the main characters who save SpongeBob and save all cartoons. Oh, how neat. Yeah, I love it. I love the fans. The kids were great to us, and it was a really neat time. And to get to do the animation, and that is some of the best animation I've ever been able to work on. The timing and the beauty, the craftsmanship in it. The backgrounds were done by Scott Morse, was our first art director who worked on Pixar movies, the Cars sequel and stuff. He's a huge talent. So I've never worked with that talented of a team before. That was probably my most potent team was on Catscratch. And we really, you know, you can't control how many seasons a network does. You know, networks pick stuff up and drop stuff off all the time.
True.
And we got on the short end of that stick, and it's fine. And then it's just since been buried. Like it's hard to even find. You got to go online and sneak around to get them because they're not released on DVD. Neither were the X's, which was done at that time. That was another one.
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of in the era of the successes out of that time was Avatar, Danny Phantom,
Teenage Robot.
Yeah. Teenage Robot had a lot of legs. And then, but the X's and R's were kind of contemporaries of each other and just were big risks and didn't quite make it.
That just really stinks.
Yeah.
But you mentioned now the Neverhood and Armikrog. Those were two great games that you used claymation to do point and click style adventure games. Please tell me, where did the idea to come with that? Was it just let's try and do something insane or what?
Yeah. It really was. I always saw video games as just another art medium to explore. So there were no rules. And if I get to do something independently, I'm always going to do something a little more creative and fun than what everyone else is doing. So Neverhood, I love clay and stop motion animation. I do a ton of it myself. And that was bringing some of my fine art into video games. I had done I did a number of shows in San Diego when I was a fine artist doing paintings and stuff involving a clay neighborhood called the Neverhood. And I would build the actual neighborhoods out of clay and then shoot them, with a camera and use it as reference to these giant 4 foot by 3 foot oil and acrylic paintings. And so when I got the chance to do a PC game, I go, let's do stop motion animation. Let's do it in clay. And we built the whole setup. We had to buy 3 tons of clay to build that Neverhood world with. All the sets were clay, characters, and we got to use, we used, like the guys that worked on all of the Leprechaun movies. They were like low-end effects guys, did our rubber work. Mark Caballero and Seamus out at Screen Novelties did a lot of some of our stop motion for us. Greg Baldwin, who worked at Creature Box, ended up creating Jack and Daxter, or whatever it's called, for Insomniac. Right. Worked for us. I'm trying to get a print out of him for this campaign, for the Earthworm Jim 2 campaign. So just legendary, great guys. Oh yeah, Greg also worked on the Spider-Man game, some animation. So I'm just saying, you end up working with everybody everywhere. Our sound guy that did all the sound effects on Neverhood did all of the sound re-recordings for all of the Miyazaki movies that were released in America. He did our musician Rob Watson wrote a lot of the music for the Pokemon movies when they came to America. So
nice. You
just start getting this broad group of guys that you just kind of call them up, and they're hungry they love creating and being, and a lot of when I call an artist, I try and get them turned on by saying, what do you want to do? Instead of nice. Here's what you will do. I just say, like, I need 12 songs. Can you write, what kind of songs would you do to this? And they go off and do them. So my voice actors are always super creative and super happy. Although now I'm getting so canceled, I don't know if I'll be able to work with any of them ever again. It's getting to where now I don't think a lot of these team members can work with me anymore, which is why I've had to go independent. And I'm really into the independent thing now. Right.
Now, Neverhood ended up becoming a bigger hit in Japan, if I recall, right?
Yeah. It was big in Japan. It was big around the world, actually, because it was pirated out in Russia and Poland and China. It's just millions and millions of people. More people have played Neverhood than Earthworm Jim around the world.
Yeah, and because I've heard there were a sequel and a spinoff, correct?
That's right. Yeah. And now in Japan, they were released through Sony.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to take 5 trips to Japan with that, and I ended up doing a lot of business with them. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I loved seeing the translation of the game, and you're a kid. You're like, I'm just a dumb artist, and I get to go to Japan and see my games released, and I just want to keep creating. That's kind of my thing. Is I like having fun, and I just now have Hollywood contacts reaching out to me about Bigfoot Bill.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I don't see how it can get made without being canceled.
Good point.
There's no way. There's just no way.
I just say wait it and just hope for the best and hope things will eventually turn around. It has to eventually. That's how I feel. I feel eventually things are going to finally balance out again once people realize we can't keep canceling everyone.
Yeah. They're going to try. It just takes, it takes a squishy studio, and the studios are so risk averse, they're so terrified.
Right. Now, Armikrog, did that come about, if I recall, because you wanted to do more Neverhood but have the rights, or
I couldn't get the rights out of EA, so I just created something new and said, we'll do a clay animated thing in my style. They can't own your style.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I just created a whole new thing called Armikrog,
which I loved, and it was such an intricate. I'd say it had a much more intricate story, but still easy to understand than even Neverhood and the like. And I wish there was more. Yeah,
it was, and we raised $975,000 on Kickstarter for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the game had a really rough launch because I didn't work on the production outside of some animation and some game design. But the guys that actually made it were 2 guys at Pencil Test Studio, the 2 main animators in Earthworm Jim, and currently on the Amico version of Earthworm Jim 4, they had to rush the Armikrog out before it was quite done. And so on certain platforms, it just tanked on like Macs and stuff like that. And they had to keep releasing patches to get it to work. And the critics just destroyed that game.
Yeah.
It was brittle.
Sorry.
So I do all this work on it, and I don't get paid. I don't care. I got a cool game done.
Right.
And, but I wish the team was able to make some serious money on one of these projects,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Now, you mentioned the upcoming with Earthworm Jim. It's actually officially called Earthworm Jim 4. I thought it was going to be the new 3, or do you have to acknowledge 3D? Because I know
3 was already in 3D, so that's tainted title. So we wanted to do a 4. And that's up to the Amico guys. That's Tommy Tallarico. Nick Brody is working on it again. So the main designer, level designer, and kind of the gameplay craftsman is Nick Brody.
Mm-hmm.
Mike D, the main animator. Ed Schofield is the other animator. Tommy Tallarico on music. Dave Perry, the programmer, is the investor in the project. So they may not be as hands-on with the game as they were originally, but it's just great to have so many of the original crew buzzing around it to take care of Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, because I know how much 3D was a sore spot for everyone involved. You guys all feel like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, that one, by then we'd all moved on. We had nothing to do with it. So it was.
Yeah, and that Game Boy Color game. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, yep. Now, of course, that leads us into Bigfoot Bill, which I loved it. And you saw my review.
Yeah.
This set a standard for crowdfunding comics. It only beaten by Earthworm Jim. And I just loved it. I thought you told a great story. You're setting up a great new universe, and yet still kept it nice, self-contained, with stuff still leading into a sequel. So how many installments of this do you have in mind?
At least 3. It'll probably be 5 because the story is getting really big on me as I write it. I won't. What I'm going to do is after Earthworm Jim. So Bigfoot Bill 2 launches. It delivers beginning of next month. So in 2 weeks.
Yep.
It was supposed to be this month. Had to get pushed back just delays, you know, all the same
What are you
problems
gonna
everyone
do?
has.
Yep.
But so it's delayed about 2 weeks. So it'll be, instead of mid-August, it'll be going out mid-September. Then after I will be done with Earthworm Jim 2 by the time that delivers. So by the middle of next month, my production work on Earthworm Jim 2 will be done. I'll be done drawing it. And then I start writing Bigfoot Bill 3. Well, I can't just write 3. It's really going to be, I'm going to write the entire rest of the story till it's done. So it'll either be one book, 160 pages, or it might be one book that's 272 pages. And if it goes beyond 272 pages, I'll have to break it up into probably 3 more books is what I'll do. And then I have to write them all. So I'm going to write basically the next 3 books, and I'll know all the way to the end where it's going to, you know, how it's going to end exactly. So, and the same we'll go for Earthworm Jim 3 through 5 and there's definitely 5 books in Earthworm Jim. I have to write 3 through 5 before I can start art on 3.
All right.
So I'll probably be taking a break after Earthworm Jim 2, and it'll be a ton of writing, 6 months to a year of writing before I go back to work. So there could be a really big gap in the crowdfunding.
Yeah. Now
I just figured after 2 books, if I haven't crafted and landed an audience yet, it ain't going to happen. And if I've done my job right and told the story right, then they're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
But I really need to properly craft that. And the 3rd story has a lot of pressure on it because everything that you're setting up for the end really has to be addressed tightly on 3. So I have to write the end tight before I can go back and write the 3rd story.
Right. Now, the first book was originally supposed to be a bit shorter, but because of stretch goals, it's stretched out. What was added into the book? Because I can't tell because it felt so seamless.
Yeah. It was always going to be a 96-page book. I just pretended like it was going to be 6.
Oh, I should have known.
Yeah. And for me, a 96-page book is scant. It's tiny. Barely even worth doing. So 160 pages is about what I really need, even to tell a small story. Most of my other 20 graphic novels are about minimum 208 pages. So they do go down to about 160 every once in a while, but usually they're much bigger.
Right. All right. That makes much more sense then. Cause I was just always like I said, wait, where did it, where was the cutoff point originally? But now you've explained it.
Yeah. So it's much more. And in fact, the new Bigfoot Bill 1 has probably 130 pages of story, probably 132 pages of story now. So I expanded it by another 34 pages. So
well,
if you get
I got both,
yeah, if you get both versions, Bigfoot Bill 1 is now going to be, it's 160 pages. So it still has, so I combined the making of, about 30 pages from the making of went into that book. And then I expanded the story to be about 130 pages. And then Bigfoot Bill 2 is a full 160 pages of story. And so that's what they'll be from here on out. Just the format is 160 page books.
Nice. But
from now on.
Yep. And I gotta say, my favorite joke has to be where the Kraken, where it sends, well, if, say, Bill has to relieve himself, that whole, especially the first time you're just like, and then the second time, it's like.
He sends his doo-doo to another dimension, to another world.
Now, does that guy see it, or is he blind? Because I could not tell if that alien that was there was blind or not.
Oh, you'll see that alien in the next book. He shows up again in book 2.
Oh, cool. Because I know from the preview book that you have it be the Chupacabras they're in the dimension as well.
That's the planet. So that's where he is. Now, it's entirely possible those guys might show up again someday. Not in book 2, but down the road.
Yeah, I guess I love all of your different takes on the old cryptids, like the skunk ape and all of that.
Yeah.
It's like you come up with some very clever renditions, and obviously, since you mentioned your unmade Mothman movie, obviously you had to put Mothman in here.
That's right. That's my, it's all part of my unified world. All the worlds are unified. It's the TenNapel verse.
So we could one day have maybe Bill meeting Jim, or is that logistically not allowed?
Legally, probably not, but in my mind, yeah, it could easily happen. So that would have to be a rights thing. I'd have to negotiate.
Right. I would, if anything else, try and do it for a short story at least. Something, like a little.
One of what my plan would be to have them cross each other, almost like what happened in The Flash with Supergirl, where they'd cross each other in one book and then still go off on their own character arcs.
Yeah.
But it's legally, I don't like dealing with contracts and lawyers. That is like the anti-art to me. Like, it's why when I hear people threaten lawsuits, I'm like, I never want any part of that stuff. I don't want it touching my life. I never want to sit in a courtroom. I want to sit at my art table and draw. So as soon as I have to get on the phone and negotiate, I'm just like, in fact, it might even ruin my desire to do Earthworm Jim and Bill books. So I'm just
Good point.
protect that by just making sure it stays fun and at my table, and dealing with contracts and lawyers. I'd rather create something new. Seriously.
Right.
And it's also like, why don't you do another Neverhood? To pull the Neverhood rights out of EA would probably kill me. So I'd rather just create a new clay animated game before I'd ever call a lawyer. I don't. I'm friends with Nick Rekieta. I would never call a lawyer to actually deal with legal problems.
Right.
I'll have cigars with them all day.
Right. I don't blame you. So now, obviously, when you did Bigfoot Bill 1, did you know you were going to do Earthworm Jim, or is that still not in the cards?
Yeah, I did not know. I assumed Bigfoot Bill 1 would be what I'd be doing for the next 5 years, and I'd probably be creating something else in my off time. And then Earthworm Jim, right when I was about to launch the Bigfoot Bill 2 campaign, Earthworm Jim got dropped in my lap. So I had already written the entire Bigfoot Bill 2 script was tight, and I had to set it aside and then bang out. And I already had a Earthworm Jim movie script that I'd written 10 years before. So I just took a chunk of it and kind of rebuilt it and repurposed it that would work in a 160-page book. So it was already written and ready to go. And suddenly those rights they came together within it was probably about a week, maybe a week and a half of negotiating. And that was one of the things that I said during the negotiation. I'm going, look, if this is going to take too long, I'll just do Bigfoot Bill 2. And we can always do Earthworm Jim 1, but you're not going to hit this Christmas. But if this gets negotiated within a week, I can hit Christmas and get the book done. So they said, okay. And they turned it around and worked it out, and we did it. And that was it. Man, I just said, okay, I guess I'm putting Bigfoot Bill 2 off, and I'm going to do Earthworm Jim. And I mean, I was just about to start the book. So I had to knock it out pretty quick. It was, I just threw in a 160-page book before I could go back to it. And now I'm going every other story. I get my head pulled completely out of Bigfoot Bill world and go into Earthworm Jim. And I got to pull my head out of that world and go do Bigfoot Bill 2. And now I'm done with that. And I pull my head out of that world and do Earthworm Jim 2. It's why I'm writing the next scripts. I'm writing the whole epic, and I'm not going to do that again.
Right. Now, is that part of the reason why Bill is clearly you could say an alternate variation of Jim in a way?
Yeah. Because they're very similar. All of my characters, they tend to be similar, I'm either doing a very young person, like a teenager, which I think in the genre works really well. If you think about young teen type characters, Back to the Future is about a teen, right? E.T. is about a youth. It's a boy's point of view. Harry Potter's a boy's point of view. Spider-Man is a young guy's point of view. And they deal with very teen, innocent, coming into manhood types of plot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very much Earthworm Jim is in that category, and very much Bigfoot Bill is. So they're still different personalities, but the way that I draw my characters, I mean, here's Clayman. He has
Yep.
Earthworm Jim's torso silhouette.
Yeah, I always notice the torso silhouette.
Big arms, big shoulders, cylindrical head, tube head. So I'm just saying, it's not, my friends always make fun of me and say that I only draw one character. So that's one type, is the teen, the awkward teen. The other type is usually the jaded adult who needs to find wonder again. So that's more the Chief and Earthboy Jacobus, Iron West, Black Cherry. These are more like adults looking back and trying to find their youth. So one is
sorry.
Go ahead.
And to a degree, like Agent Beckner in Bigfoot Bill, right?
Right. He's a bureaucrat, dead end job, doesn't like it. It's like he has no love in his life, and he needs youth in his life. And so he's going to meet Bigfoot Bill. And so likewise with Earthworm Jim and Farmer Jim. Farmer Jim is a widowed adult, lives alone, doesn't know anybody. He's kind of going crazy, inventing things in that farmhouse. And then suddenly this freak show of characters get dumped on his lap.
And at first he's like, get out of my house. But eventually,
I'm calling the police.
Oh yeah, sure. What are the police going to say when you tell them there's a bug lady and a giant worm?
Yeah, and a ball of snot in my house. Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's a big question. Who would you say is probably more got their head in the game? Maybe I don't want to say smarter, but between Bill and Jim, it felt like always Bill definitely felt a bit more like he knew the world. Well, obviously he knows the world more than Jim, but
I think Bill is a little less insane. Bill isn't crazy. Earthworm Jim is a little unhinged. And that's just from the video game, and the story is he is a little more. Jim's almost like a 4-year-old. I mean, when he's crawling on the ground and eating dirt, he's doing stuff that Bigfoot Bill would never do,
Right.
And Earthworm Jim, so Bigfoot Bill has to earn his intelligence, he's learning. He has a kraken attached to his chest that is 3,000 years old or 5,000 years old and wise. But he has to talk to him to get the information. Earthworm Jim, because of his relationship with the suit has a supercomputer that can give him information and give him all that wisdom, but still he's a kid. He hasn't earned the knowledge. So he's not smart.
So kind of like Shazam, if Billy had access to the wisdom,
right, but
doesn't turn into an adult.
Right. That Shazam movie is very much like Earthworm Jim. Body of a intergalactic, impenetrable supersuit with the mind of a kid operating it.
Right. But again, like you said, you're going to have Finger Poseidon coming up soon. And I got to say, the way you end up Poseidon, wow, he is just a bastard.
He is a true heartbroken, wicked monster. And I love him. He's he became one of my favorite characters. He's just, again, when you get the new Bigfoot Bill one, you'll see his whole backstory, just a totally heartbroken being, a tragic character. He's tragic in that you don't see where he could have turned right or left and avoided what happened to him. And he's furious about it. And I can't wait to see what you think of Bigfoot Bill 2. I think it's one of the best stories I've written. So
I can't wait either.
I'm looking forward. It really expands the soap opera. And now I don't have to introduce characters and say, oh, this is this, that is that. I do introduce lots of new characters, but I'm saying the A-plot characters.
Right.
I can just take off and go with them now with their story.
Right. Like now, is the Kraken, does he still want to get back to Poseidon, or is he taking a liking to Bill?
His heart is now with Bill.
All right.
So in a soap opera, you know what it's going to happen.
Oh,
already.
I do.
It's
Gets
like-
back to Poseidon. And
it's a romantic comedy in a way.
Oh, awesome.
That you can't always get what you want.
Right. Now, you were going to be doing a couple, like working on a Bigfoot Bill game. Now,
Yeah.
I'm assuming Earthworm Jim threw a wrench into that, right?
It wasn't Earthworm Jim. It's the team itself. And I have a second team now working on a second game.
Mm-hmm.
That first team, the problem was a crucial member just had like a life breakdown that had nothing to do with the game, but just, it's not, it's not working. And I keep telling him, look, can I pull this, give it to another team? And he's like, no. And because of his mental state, I don't want to go against what he wants because it might hurt him.
Right.
And these are good friends of mine. So it's very difficult having, and you have to answer backers that are just like, you're a scumbag, give me my game. You promised this. And I go, I'm not going to throw a friend under the bus and say, he's a dirtbag, go get him. I'm going to say, you're going to have to wait. And we're going to, as far as I know, it's going to get done. I don't see a lot of evidence that it's going to happen, but he keeps promising me I'm going to get back to it. And I go, okay, well, and the other there's a second team now working on the game. And so these are like, games cost. This is like a $200,000 game that I'm trying to get done for about $8,000. So
hey, that's very respectful though, that you're not throwing him to the wolves and all that. That is very respectful.
We stand with our friends, and I'm willing to take some heat. And because I over deliver in so many other areas, I hope people can be a little more understanding when one part of the project, poops the bed.
Right.
So not everything. The stuff under my control happens perfectly. There's a whole lot of stuff that is not under my control.
Yeah. Now, what about the audio readings of the books? Are you
those are under my control, and those are my responsibility. So basically, Bigfoot Bill 2, as it delivers next month, I'll have to get going on the audio of 1 and 2.
And since you're taking all the time to do the writing, you really don't have much of an excuse, do you?
And I have to do 16 commissions associated with Bigfoot Bill 2. So I have to do 16 watercolors. So it might deliver a little late, but it's not going to be outrageously late. And I want you to read the book, get the book delivered, and have you read it before I read it to you. But then I'll read along with you on a commentary. And it's going to be a blast. So this could be story time with Uncle Doug.
Yep.
And I'm going to do, all I'm going to do is I got this idea. Malin told me how to do it. It's going to be, I point the camera down at the book and I'm just going to read it to you on a YouTube stream and then set it to private and send the link to all the backers. And so they can look at it and they can pass it around to each other or whatever, but it'll be forever yours.
That works. That's a very good idea. Now, well, that's most of your work, but when it comes to when you write now, I like to ask you more about how you do your writing. When you write characters, because you've done all different types. You've done comedic, you've done serious and all that. What goes into your mind when you're trying to decide what character is funny, what character is serious? Like, what makes you decide that?
I think all characters can be serious and funny. So I'm never looking for a character that is just a fart joke. I think that's when a character they become less human, right? If they're not full. So obviously there's some characters that you lean on for the sarcastic commentary or the naive, dumb statement. But even straight characters, it's always funnier if you're going to have an ice cream scoop fall on someone's head. It's funnier if it goes on a straight character than if it goes on a goof.
True.
Right? The contrast. So you use all of the characters in different ways. And I want you to care for the goofs. Like, I don't want a throwaway guy, right? I don't want you to ever see him. I really use John Locke in book 2 a lot too. I never want you to look at him and go, that's just a goofy, dumb sidekick that says weird. He quotes John Locke all the time.
Right.
It's like, when you see him in this story, you're going to care about what happens with him, even though he's also funny, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm writing characters, I'm just looking for, to me, I see them all as ensouled beings, like they're my creations and they walk around in real life, you know, in this world is real life. And I just, I'm looking for things that a reader will find. I just want them to turn the page and care, right? You're just trying to get a reader to care. If they don't care,
right,
you didn't write it well. So
and
if one of my characters shows up in a book and you don't care,
right,
that's bad. So there's a lot of ways I can get you to care. I can put the character in trouble and get you to care because you agree with his plight. I can even a character who you don't agree with their plight, like Poseidon. If he's screwed over hard enough by other people, your heart will go out to him. It's like, oh man, that guy, I hate him, but he's getting screwed, and I'm not cheering for that. Other characters you are cheering against, so it's a relief when like Judgy the Unicorn gets knocked or falls down or something. You know, it's like so. There's a lot of psychology that goes into characters, and I'm always, I'm the first audience member reading this book, so I'm kind of going, what moves me, what bugs me about this character. And sometimes you just make him even more obnoxious and go, well, what if he said this? And you go like, ugh, I hate that guy.
Right.
I can't believe he's doing that. It's like, it's so awful. And you go, yeah, that's delicious. And you keep writing that, you go, yeah.
Which, like I say, that's probably why your work stands out so much against some of the other crowdfunded books, is that you put that type of thought in. Because, if I could be honest, some crowdfundings, and I'm saying this as a broad statement, I'm not going for any in particular.
Of course.
Some of them seem to go for, what kind of cool character can I do so I can draw some cool stuff? And then they come up with some characterizations. A lot of them have been good with the characterizations, but they're not putting in as much depth because they just want to go for, again, cool poses or cool action or cool catchphrases.
It's a little too illustrator oriented. Not just crowdfunding comics. It's all comics. My advice to all artists would be learn a little more about writing. And then my advice to the writers would be learn a little more about drawing or acting, visual acting and animation and stuff like that. So, because really it's a double discipline. It's as much written as it is drawn. And artists tend to think of just like, I'm going to put big boobs and big muscles and punch the guy, And I go, you have to give the audience, you have to make the audience care about the why of the fight. And then they'll be 10 times more invested. Like if that punch has all the meaning in the world, then you'll go, oh, it's so great. He's not just flying over the city to look cool. It's, I care. And I think that's where we see a lot of passion in Batman, is he always looks so sad on those Gothic buildings in shadow over Gotham. He's going, I care about this dump. And, you see what happened to his parents in it. And so all these things are being projected in those images. And then when he does get in a fight, hopefully you're rooting for him. And we get really mad when people screw with that formula and make him someone that we don't care about anymore, or he's too busy trying to bang Catwoman than to save for Catwoman's trying to bang Poison Ivy. And you're like, wait, where's the Batman and Gotham?
Yep. Or Superman, for that example. And because Superman's my favorite comic character. And I feel when he's written best is when he's the type who's saying, I'm doing everything I can, but I don't want to solve all the problems. I can't. All I can do is try and do what I can and inspire others to do better.
Yeah. To me, the best Superman in the world was the movie Superman 2. I haven't seen the comics really approach that much, where you can't get to Superman, but you can get to his love.
Right.
That's what Zod says when they're throwing the manhook. He goes, he loves these people. That's how we'll get him.
Yeah, he cares.
He cares. Yeah. And that's just a great, that's all a comic has to do is make us feel what Superman feels when they're damaging people. And suddenly you don't have to build a character that's bigger than Superman for him to go fight.
No,
you just have to get bad guys that destroy the world in ways that he sees. He's like an imperfect God who's not omnipotent. Because he has the power to stop it, but he can't be everywhere at once, and that's got to be frustrating and guilt-ridden for him. That's what I do with him. That's a pretty obvious solve.
Exactly. I mean, with my, I have my own character, my own fictional universe, and believe it or not, I got so many ideas in my head. I've come up with just different variations of them just to make sure I can do it on anything: video games, movies, comics, whatever. And each one, though, I still have the certain heart of. These are a group of characters who, in the end, want to do what's best, even despite their flaws. And like for one of them is a ninja who's a superhero, still follows more of a samurai code more, but she's, she basically tries to do what she can, even if it means going against the norm of being a ninja.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great conflict because ninja's so honor-based and traditional, and then superhero powers are more sci-fi, and maybe conflict with that honor code.
Exactly. And then I have a villain who's all about honor. He's this genocidal being who has wiped out planets, but in his eye, he's been testing these planets, and they keep showing up short. So he's not proud of what he's doing, but he's doing it because he feels like they need to earn their place because my people are so powerful.
That's wonderful. I love hearing about other creators making stuff. Are you going to draw that, or are you going to write it? What is it?
I'm going to write it. I've had a bunch of creators, comic artists. I've commissioned them to draw my characters. I've had some friends who are artists who I plan on one day doing a little ash can copy of a comic that's a little teaser before we eventually get something going.
Yeah, and if they won't draw it, I would write a novel. If you're writing that much, don't let other people stop you from making something. I'm real big on writing novels too.
Oh,
I mean, I
should.
If you're a writer, you can tear into that universe all day, and you don't have to wait on someone else.
That's true, and also I do have, for example, if I was to do it as a TV show, I already have a key idea for how I can be telling them, like, hey, you want to make toys off of this? And I'll just tell them a big key part of my story, the multiverse. They interact with other variations of themselves. So if they want to, you want to do a figure that more promotes to these progressives, they exist. They're not going to be used that much, but they exist.
You got to write that thing, man.
I will.
Get her done, Robert. Get on it.
I will. So that's about all. Well, actually, no. What I was going to say is you have really set a high standard for crowdfunding. And yet, obviously, you're constantly improving yourself every campaign. So what advice would you want to give to other people doing campaigns? And are there any other campaigns out there you look at that, while might not be at all at your standard, you still feel like, maybe not follow my example, but follow their example?
Yeah. I learn from every campaign that I look at, successful or failures. I'm studying them. That's my business. So, anytime I see a campaign that's raising funds, and I want it to make sense to me, I want to find out the why is that working? And, because they're each succeeding in some way, I was recently looking at like Lady Death, Brian Pulido. He has 1,000 less backers on his campaign, but 100,000 more dollars raised than my campaign. So I go, well, what's he doing that I'm not doing?
I can think of a few reasons.
yeah, I can think of 2 reasons. You just start asking yourself questions. And then I may not change my next campaign accordingly, but at least I want to see what part of the business is he succeeding at. Ethan selling the $200 box. I want to see what are people valuing, or the all-in box. It's like, it's
Right.
everything pain is going in. And, you see kind of like, I go, well, why did that penetrate, or why was that message so clear to the backers when they came in? They said, oh, this is just clear. This is the one I want, So you learn from all these people. And then there's other campaigns where I look at their structure and I look at Jake Parker's a lot. He's just a great designer. And I go, ooh, his images are so clear on his tiers. And when he shows the pins, he really puts them on a cardboard backing. So it just looks like a $50 pin, that he's pin that he's giving you. So I look at all of them and I see it as a very, a fun business to learn. It's kind of messy,
right,
in the studio, and the way that we approach it. You guess and you try and you fail in some areas, and then you succeed in other areas. So really, to me, the biggest learning curve, this goes for, if you're going to do a comic, you should write it. If you're going to draw a comic, draw it. And if you're going to crowdfund it, go crowdfund one. Because our problem is, I think we fear failure so much that it petrifies us. We sit there like catatonic in fear of failure. I'm going, guys, the greatest businessmen of all time, probably failed 90% of the time. They made all their money on their successes that they learned from their failures. So you'll learn so much by pulling the trigger on saying, I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to make a comic, or I'm going to run a campaign, and you'll learn more than anything I could ever teach you. So that's always my thing, is that's my theme, is make stuff. Go make stuff, write your book, do your album. If you're a musician, make your album, write your play, put it on, and just if you fail, you're not going to go to jail. You're not going to get shot. You're not going to physically hurt. You're going to just be a little bit embarrassed that you didn't raise the money, or you didn't execute just right. And most people, they just like funding stuff, and they want to encourage you to try.
Well, like I said, it was my case. Here's what I plan on doing. I plan on doing the ash can, just something to give out to people. That's not even going to be crowdfunded. And then I plan on doing my friend's suggestion was we do it as a webcomic. We build things up. And then we do a collection. Yep. Then we do a collection. Exactly. Then we do the crowdfunding. It's for the collection.
Yep.
That's our plan going forward. But like I said, I actually have to get to writing this, and I'm trying to find just time. But I do intend on getting at least the ash can done first. Yeah.
There's a top tier one right now. It looks like some kind of a non-binary comic or something on Kickstarter that's kicking my ass by about $100,000 or maybe more. And it's off a web comic that has 3 million readers.
Which, so you build your audience.
I learned a little something on that one. I'm going like, oh, that's another way of doing it. So there's a million ways to do it. It is not just get the biggest YouTube channel you can find, and there's no other way. That is one great way. But if you're not a YouTube personnel and you can't get the subs, I've got good news for you. 99.9% of the campaigns out there that ever succeeded found another way.
Exactly.
And the real key is I would try anything and everything and then go for it. And there's a joy in making stuff, and there's even a joy in failing. It's like I've failed so many times. So just because I've done 20 graphic novels doesn't mean I've succeeded 20 times. I probably failed at 10 other things along the way. And the 20 graphic novels were a big success. So my life is full of failure, and I think it's fun. It's because I never want someone to rob my joy from trying. I love trying.
Yep. Trying's always the best.
I'm looking into right now. I'm doing research on a t-shirt, doing a line of t-shirts, like 30 t-shirts. Why not? What am I afraid of?
You used to do a Bigfoot Bill t-shirt where it's just the Kraken. So
I'm definitely doing that. I'm going to do, you can wear the Kraken on your chest. It's going to be That'll be probably the first shirt I design.
Yeah, because that seems so obvious to do.
Yeah.
It's just like, 'cause he looks
Be
like a
the
shirt.
Kraken. Be
Yeah.
the Kraken.
'Cause he looks like a shirt, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's already a t-shirt. It'll be great merch.
Yep. I'll if you do that, I will probably buy one.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep. Yep.
Well, and that's
So-
again, that's one where I go, that's such a great idea. I don't even care if it fails. You know, I'd rather make it than not. So let's make some.
Exactly. Now, one last from a writer's question. My stuff, unfortunately, because I have so much stuff planned out and thought out. I have, like, for example, one character who I have way down the line, but she's one of my heart and souls, like my baby, that type of character. And so my question is, what would be the safer way to do it? Do an anthology where I do stuff in the present day, but then I jump ahead to introduce that character? Do a version of the character who exists on her own that's a standby until I catch up in the real universe? Things like that. What
Really, it's whatever excites you. I mean, if you love this one character, you may want to jump in and do it because you love it so much, or you may feel like you're still in practice mode, so you don't want to blow it with that character, so you'll hold off on it.
All right.
It's really a matter of, and the real truth about all this is, and I've said this too, is I have all these rules and all these, disciplines and things that you can go through. Really, you can do anything the hell you want. Like I said, you're not going to get in trouble. You could launch it one way and say, oh, I scrapped that universe. Here's the real version of the character. Guess what?
Until I get it right. Until I get it right.
I mean, you won't get in trouble.
True.
That's why the real trick is what's going to get you to do something.
That is a very good trick.
That's the real trick.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Doug. That's about all the questions I have for you. I really appreciate you doing this, and I cannot wait for Bigfoot Bill book 1 and 2 to come in my, at my doorstep and all that.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a blast shipping them to you. I can't wait to see the review. Can't wait to hear what you think of it.
Yep.
And for everyone out there, you can get Bigfoot Bill 1 and 2 on the Earthworm Jim campaign, Earthworm Jim 2 on Kickstarter, or you can wait for the Indiegogo. But I'd love to have you as a reader if you have never read my stuff before. Bigfoot Bill 1 and 2, Earthworm Jim 1 and 2 are a great way to start. So I appreciate the time on your show, Robert. I love hanging with you. Anytime you want to hang, let's go. Right, I dig you.
I dig you too.
All right, my brother.
All right. Yep. Take care.
Yep.
And everyone else, see you on the other side.